I wish I could tell you all the motivation and drive comes from a good, healthy place, but some of it comes from sheer fear and just letting that fear drive me and not ever wanting to be in the position that I was in as a kid, that my parents were in when I was a kid. As first generation immigrants, we came here with one suitcase and, it was like 1 foot into foreclosure every month.
Welcome to Inside the Drive, the podcast that takes you inside Rolls-Royce and lends insight behind the drive of the accomplished entrepreneurs who commission them. I'm Kellen Dixon. Welcome to Inside the Drive. Tina Odjaghian is a successful catastrophic attorney and principal of Odjaghian Law Group. Her firm is responsible for some of the largest settlements and awards on behalf of injured workers in the state. She's a mentor, mother of two, a wife, an investor, and fashionista. She is also a member of Vogue 100. Tina, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So I have to start off by asking, what are you wearing?
Oh, what am I wearing? I am wearing Chanel from 2018, one of the last Karl Lagerfeld collections before he passed away. I think it was Hamburg, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of my favorite Chanel jackets of all time. And I'm pairing them with a pair of Alaya boots, make it kind of funky, and some Chanel gloves from a long time ago. And
aside from being one of my favorite clients, you're definitely like one of my favorite fashion icons. I feel like I can't wait till the day that I get to see your closet.
I love you. Come over anytime. We'll do champagne brunch in the closet. You got it.
I love it. How would you describe your style?
I would say classic with like an edgy kind of twist. And again, I'm very versatile. I wear a lot of different kind of styles, just depending on my mood any given day. I like to push the limits of fashion a little bit, and take fashion risks. And sometimes they pay off, and sometimes it's like, oh my God, what the hell was I thinking? But,
So how would you say that your style is reflected in your Cullinan Black Badge?
Ooh, okay. So look, it's classic on the outside, yes. Right? And but when you open it, it's got a burst of color.
Yes.
Most of my closet's in color. I do very little black. I just, it's such a loud, beautiful car. I wanted the outside to be elegant and understated. And that color inside, people are saying, oh, you're going to get tired of that. But honestly, it cheers me up every time I get into it. I love that color.
This is a 2022 Black Badge Cullinan in black diamond, featuring a forged yellow interior and matching brake calipers. You also have a wraith.
I do.
And what is the color combination of your wraith?
It's like a graphite with red and black interior. Love.
Which model do you prefer?
You want me to be honest?
I do want to be honest.
I love the wraith. My husband's trying to get me to trade it in for the Spectre, and I told him if I get the Spectre, I'll just get that, but I'm never parting with the wraith. I love it.
Your wraith.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Because I feel like it's got such an amazing, like, sporty drive. It, like, hugs the road like some of my best sports cars, but at the same time, it's got the feel of a luxury sedan.
Yes.
And, I love a luxurious ride, so yes. It's just the perfect balance. And for me, I'm not a big car connoisseur, so for me, it comes down to comfort and aesthetics, right? And it's super comfortable because it's got that seat. I've got the weird thing with the headrest.
Headrest, yes.
So it's got my comfortable seat, and I love the color.
Yeah.
So.
What was your first car?
Oh my God, I actually saw that question. I was like, God, I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. No, my first car was the only car that I can afford. I remember working, I don't know how many months to save up for a down payment. And I bought myself a Toyota Camry.
Okay.
Because it was reliable and I needed to be able to drive myself to college and back. And I had that car through college, through law school. I think we hit 200,000 miles with it. No joke. I drove that to death, basically. That was my first car. It was the most beat up car in my law school parking lot, but man, it did the job. So
it got you here today, right?
Right.
What was your first luxury car that you purchased?
Ooh, my first luxury car. It's funny because cars aren't really necessarily my thing. It's more fashion. And I think I probably bought my husband a Ferrari before I got myself a luxury car. My first luxury car was an SL 500.
Okay.
When I started practicing law, I hit my first big result. we bought our first home, and I got myself that car. And I remember how much fun it was to kind of drive it around. But after that, I kind of went back to more understated. I think I had an A8 for a while. And, and then one day I was like, you know what? I got to get myself a nice car that's reflective of, where I feel I'm at in my life. So
what made you decide to purchase a Rolls-Royce?
Honestly, I owned a Bentley Flying Spur at the time, the old body. And I refused to part with it because I just love that big grille and the imposing stature of that car. And then they changed the model and they made it look like a Mazda Miata. Nothing against Mazda Miatas. But I was like, okay, yeah, no, I need something like with a nicer, bigger grill. And I just thought, a Rolls Royce. But then I thought, is that something I can drive around every day as an everyday driver? And then, of course, I always had this, being a first generation immigrant, that a little bit of guilt, like, what right do I have to treat myself to something so luxurious? I should be, giving back, helping people, which I do. But when it comes to yourself, it's a little bit of like, I'll do it for my husband or I'll do it for somebody else. But back then, 20 years ago, I was like, I don't know. And then one day I was like, why not, Cullinan?
Right.
Why not?
Right.
So I came and saw you, and I think I fell in love with the Wraith, and the rest is history.
Yes. Well, actually, you initially inquired on a Ghost and then fell in love with the Cullinan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. And I think coming from the Bentley, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were looking more sedan.
Yeah.
Found the Wraith. So it gave you kind of that sporty feel, but then ultimately ended up purchasing a Cullinan too.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got 2 boys, and they're tall, they're growing boys, and they were not happy in the back of a Wraith. So we had to do something about that.
Charlie and Luca are getting a little big for the backseat of the Wraith.
Yeah.
Can you describe the feeling you had the first time you drove a Rolls-Royce?
The Cullinan?
Either or.
I felt like a baller. Just kidding.
I've made it.
It felt great. I felt amazing. I felt like I owned the road, and it gave me a lot of like confidence on the drive, but at the same time, like that color inside just, like I said, cheers me up so much. And I don't know, I just love the feel of that car.
Yeah.
And it's the feel of the car and the performance of the car, but also what it represents. I had like a feeling of exalted pride of like working really hard and being able to get myself something nice. And, I always try to get myself a memento every time I hit a milestone in my career, if I settle a case or if I try a case. And this was just one of those things where I felt really kind of proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a certain goal that you achieved to purchase a Rolls-Royce?
No particular goal. I think, I've always just been really mindful to be sensible when it comes to my purchases, right? And so being a first-generation immigrant with parents that really struggled to make it here, I, don't really spend frivolously. And so my focus always has been on investing. As soon as I started making some real money as an attorney and hitting some big cases, I've been acquiring real estate and doing things to kind of secure my family's future. And so luxury goods weren't really a priority. So it wasn't like, oh, once I do this, I'm going to buy myself a Rolls Royce. I think I just woke up one day and I was like, you know what? I want that. And I'm comfortable enough to not have to really have it be a consideration, and so I decided to indulge.
I love that. Okay, so I have to ask. So when you're going to trial,
yeah,
what car are you getting in?
Well, I'm getting in my Chevy, and I'll tell you why. Because judges and jurors see you park, and they see you get into court, and you don't want to offend anyone's sensibilities. And we are all hardworking and have the ability, and as we should, to enjoy the fruits of our labor and indulge ourselves. But we don't ever want to make anyone feel a certain kind of way. Sure. And so I'm very mindful of that. And so when I go to court, I really, most of the time, will take a more understated car just because I feel it's more appropriate. I want to be more relatable and not make anyone feel alienated or, isolated or you know what I mean? And so I always am very mindful of that. But, definitely driving different cars makes you feel a different kind of way, kind of like wardrobe, right? It's an extension of your wardrobe and your armor. And, your costume kind of for the day,
Yes.
right? And for someone who's not really particularly car connoisseur, but I've got, I've had decent collection throughout the years. I'm motivated by, my husband's going to cringe when I say this, but by the aesthetics, like the color and how it makes me feel and, what it looks like and how I feel when I get into it, as opposed to the mechanics of what's in the engine, because honestly, a lot of that goes over my head, right? So
Me too still. Don't worry. Don't feel bad.
Actually, that does make me feel better. Thank you for that. But, so my Cullinan is like a mean machine, and it's like, it's my soccer mom car sometimes, but it's also, it also makes me feel really sort of powerful, like I own the road, and it's a great feeling. But the Wraith is kind of like my, Saturday night, either, date night out, mom's night out, if I don't feel like getting into one of Armin's sports cars where I'm like cramped and I want, I still want to enjoy that like road hugging, fast, amazing drive that like hugs the curves, but at the same time, it's still luxurious and comfortable, and I can wear heels and a cute outfit and not get stuck in the bucket seat. Like, I'm all about the Wraith, which is why I will never part with it.
Okay. We're going to have to add a third one to your collection then.
You know what? That Spectre was something else.
You see what I did there?
Yeah. God damn it. Cullen, why did you do that?
I had to lend you the Spectre in order so that we could, set up your Cullinan.
You're not getting my Wraith back. I'm going to tell you that right now. But the Spectre, I love that Spectre, and that grape. I don't have a purse in that color yet, but I've special ordered one. It's coming. So
it's
like
meant to be.
The fact that you knew that.
Because I've noticed that some of your handbags match the interior of your Cullinan.
They do. This is definitely true. I've got a little bit of an addiction that's healthier than therapy, I think, or medication for sure.
Okay.
As someone who loves fashion, I really, apparel is my thing, but I enjoy handbags as well. And I've got a beautiful collection that I've amassed over the years. I've got this thing that I do, Cullen, every time, I've got a great result, or I have a, good trial result or a big settlement or something. I'll get myself a memento to kind of remember that result by.
Yes.
And, it could be a piece of jewelry, it could be a handbag. We always make sure that we do like a donation to a charity that we love, our favorite, our different Armenian children's charities that we give to. And then at the same time, I'll get myself a little, gift to self.
Good for
you. And so that's where those handbags come from. But you are correct in that I've got a Rouge Cassac that matches the interior of the Wraith. And I've got, I think it's called Mimosa, that matches the inside of that one.
I love it. I love it. Going back to, I can't wait to see your closet.
Come over anytime.
What made you decide to become a catastrophic injury attorney?
Oof. Well, you don't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be a catastrophic injury attorney. It's so niche and it's so specific. But, God had a path in mind for me, and that's what worked out. And law school, it's not like med school. You don't really specialize. And so for me, I started out as actually a defense lawyer, defending a lot of companies against claims like this. And one day I was in court, and I met a woman who was crying on the court steps because her husband had fallen off the roof, and their attorney at the time was trying to force them into like an $80,000 settlement or something that would and even cover his meds for 1 year.
Right. And
she asked me if I could help her. And I remember telling my then partner, hey, look, we can do this. We know the other side inside and out. Let's take this case. Let's help this family. And we did. And, we tried it and we settled it in the 7 figures, 20 years ago.
Wow.
And the rest is history. Everything else has kind of been word of mouth.
What would you say is one characteristic that you would need to have to be a successful litigator?
I think the characteristic you need to have to be a successful litigator is the same characteristic as you would need to be successful in any career path, right? You have to be hardworking, and you have to have follow through, and you have to have tenacity and be a person of your word and say what you're going to do. But at the end of the day, just, be willing to work hard, work really, really hard, because, hard work beats talent every time. Talent's sleeping on the job, right? So you have to be really hardworking and not take no for an answer.
Is there any case that you currently have going on that you can share with us?
Gosh, I have a lot of interesting cases. There's one that's currently ongoing that I can't really say too much about, but it was a young man who was an aspiring writer who was working at Fox, and he fell 5 stories and had just a catastrophic, terrible injury, head injury, and he's semi-vegetative. And we had a 7-day trial on the first part of his case to determine whether or not that was something that his employer was responsible for. They try to say, he was horseplaying, he was trying to commit suicide, everything and anything under the sun. Oh. And it was really heartbreaking. But you see this young, energetic kid in the morning on the camera footage, with his iron shirt in hand, with his gym bag in one hand, excited to be there, high-fiving people. And at the end of the day, just looking really agitated. And then we lose footage, and then he's fallen 5 stories. And so that case really kept me up at night. I really bonded with the mom. And it's one of those instances where I feel really fortunate to get to do what I do, because I feel like I can really make a difference in this young man's life and his family's life. Their life will never be the same, but at least to kind of help secure their future a little bit. So that's still ongoing. And but we won the first phase, and so I'm really excited and proud about that.
Do you find at times hard to emotionally turn off from just these cases and then coming home?
Yeah. Honestly, I used to say, I don't know how my physician friends do it, but our job isn't any easier. We're dealing with people at a time in their lives where they're rock bottom, and I don't take it for granted, and it does wear on you, and you do internalize it. And so I try to focus on the fact that I get to be a part of their silver lining, and that's super special. And it definitely makes me appreciate everything and everyone I have in my life, and puts things in perspective, that, my inconveniences are nothing compared to what these folks are going through. And it keeps me really humble and grounded.
What is your biggest fear that you had to overcome in your career?
My biggest fear is probably no different than many people's, is the fear of failure, right? Every step of the way, the first big case I hit, Cullinan, I thought, oh my gosh, I got lucky. And the second time, the same. As a Middle Eastern woman growing up, you're not told, things like, you've got this, you can do anything you set your mind to. And so the internal voice is very different, and you get imposter syndrome, and it's very different. And then the second time, the same, and the third time, the same. And at some point, I thought to myself, you know what? This isn't luck. This is my own ability, my own strength, my own skill set, my own ability to kind of just follow through and bring these cases to fruition. So I think fear of failure, is still a thing. It takes a lot of kind of deep work and affirmations and quieting the negative voice in your head to be able to press forward and push through and persevere, I think.
Absolutely. Do you feel that it's a harder journey for young women in your career field than it is for men?
I definitely do. It's sort of a sensitive subject. A lot of folks say, when you talk about gender, you're making gender an issue, but it very much is the elephant in the room. It is an issue. We're graduating 55% women, I think, last census, but 25% or so are actually trying cases in a courtroom. And when you look at the partnership structure at big firms, that number is probably even smaller. And so I think it's definitely harder. Another reason it's harder is because when you form a family unit, you're the one that's kind of childbearing and all of that, and more of the nurture and the family structure. And so you're in this dual role, and it's a lot at times, but you sometimes have to kind of take a step back and say, I got to do that. I get to live this life and do all of this stuff. And how amazing is that, know?
Right, absolutely. That's the biggest accomplishment. What would you tell a young female attorney just getting started? What would be some advice that you would give her?
I would say where you start out in life doesn't in any way dictate where you're going to end up. I would say believe in yourself, be your own best friend, be your own best advocate, keep your options open, invest in yourself, rely on yourself to get yourself to where you need to get to in life. And that's not to say relationships are not important and partnerships not important, but I think the most important relationship you can have is the one you have with yourself. Okay. And if that's healthy, then it kind of carries you through life, and it prevents you from getting into codependent situations, and it really kind of helps give you the confidence that no matter what, you're able to get through it and stand on your own 2 feet.
Absolutely. Wow. That's very powerful. Your law firm, how long ago did you start that?
I don't want to tell you because I'll age myself.
Okay.
I've been practicing for 20 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been a hot minute.
But you haven't always had your own firm.
I went out on my own 2 years out of school. So It's been my own firm for a really long time. I had a partner for a minute, and I've been on my own since then. I've got some associates and an amazing team, including my assistant there, Natalie. Hi.
Hi, Natalie.
But, I've had my own firm for close to 2 decades now.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. If your parents had to describe your personality growing up, what would they say?
Well, that question stumped me a little. So I told Natalie, call my dad. Let's talk to him. And it was like this whole comedy this morning because he didn't have his hearing aids on. And so he's like yelling at us. And so we texted him the question. And Natalie said, how would you describe Tina when she was a kid? And my dad said, bossy. But I don't think that that's accurate. My dad, when we moved here, I was 10 years old and my dad had to go abroad to work to support the family. So he wasn't around for like 20 years or so. Uh-huh. And so, he was being silly and he was being funny because I am very bossy now. But growing up, my mom had a stroke 7 years ago and lost her ability to speak. But I think if you asked her, she would tell you that, I was a little introverted.
Okay.
And kind of mousy, for lack of a better adjective. Like, when we moved here, we lived in La Cañada. We settled in my aunt's basement, and it was a predominantly white city. I was the only brown kid in that city. I didn't have a great experience. And so I kind of kept to myself a little bit. It wasn't until we moved to Glendale and I was well into high school that I started to kind of come out of my shell a little bit. So I was a quiet, shy, introverted kid with a strict mom. So I didn't really say very much early on.
Interesting.
I'm making up for it now.
Yeah, because I would never in a million. If you say Tina, I'm like, Tina is a powerhouse. Tina is, she's amazing. I just would never think that you would be an introverted person. You're the life of the
I love
party
you.
now.
Thank you. I feel like that about you.
Are you more like your mom or are you more like your dad?
I see qualities in myself from both. My dad is very sort of jovial and, he's a jokester and light-spirited and likes to make people laugh. And, and so I think I get that from him. I get my goofiness from my dad. My mom was really hardworking. She was essentially a single mom for a very long time in a foreign country and just had the ability to multitask and do so much and sacrifice so much. And I think I get my work ethic probably from my mom, my ability to follow through and not give up and just, that first generation hustle I think I get from my mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Charlie and Luca. Whose personality is like yours, would you say?
Charlie looks a lot like me, right? But Luca looks a lot like Dad, but his personality is more like mine. I think he's, and not to say that I'm charismatic, but he has a lot of personality and he's charming.
You're charismatic. I'll give you. Let's clear that up.
He's charming and charismatic, and he has a lot of like emotional intelligence and knows what strings to pull on to get what he wants. He's kind of I call him my little gypsy. Like he knows what's up. He knows how to get what he needs to get, right? Charlie's a little more serious, like he's tormented, like serious soul, great kid, a lot more conservative and kind of serious than his brother. But Luca's personality for his age is super outgoing. Yes. But they're both incredible in their own way, and they just light up my life. So,
has either one of your sons shown any kind of desire to be an attorney?
They both want to be NBA basketball players. They could give a shit less about anything else. My entire household is dedicated to basketball. But, Luca will say once in a while, Mom, if the NBA thing doesn't work out, I'll come and, run your firm. It's hard because my biggest challenge now is to raise like good humans, obviously that are compassionate and kind to others, but also that have an aptitude for success and have the drive that I have as a result of being a first-generation immigrant and having nothing, right. Because they have everything.
Sure.
So it's really hard to kind of instill that same kind of drive that comes from necessity and survival, right? And so, I'll say things to them like, hey, you're enjoying this ride, you're enjoying this meal. You gotta work hard, you gotta study hard to be able to do this for yourself down the road, and kind of planting little seeds, trying to incentivize them to do their work, trying to give them chores, trying to give them a sense of responsibility from a young age.
Sure.
But parenting is trial and error, and
Right.
and we do our best to do better than the last generation in hopes that our kids will thrive.
Absolutely. You were featured in Vogue 100. Can you tell me what that was like?
So the Vogue 100 is really cool. It's my creative outlet. It is a group of 55 women globally that are, really into fashion, and we travel together and we attend, different fashion shows and different events hosted by different designers and stuff. There's influencers and celebrities and artists and, just incredible women from around the globe. It's kind of a global community put together by Anna Wintour, who's my idol because she is just incredible, not because of what she's done with fashion, but because, she's the strongest woman in media, and she represents, the height of where you can get to as a woman, right?
Absolutely.
So, it was honestly an honor, and I enjoy it so much. And it's kind of a new development in my life, but it's one of those things that I decided normally if I would have been asked that 5 years ago, I think I would have declined just out of a sense of responsibility to all of my other responsibilities. But I decided, I want to do this for myself, and it's the best thing I've done.
So how did you get into fashion?
So my grandmother, who was the matriarch of our family back home, was one of 140 men to graduate from dental school back in the Soviet Union. Okay. Wow. So she was the only woman in a class of 140, and she was the primary breadwinner. She not only supported her family, but extended family as well. And she loved to be pristine and just well put together when she left the house because she felt like it was a reflection of her and her family. And so I grew up with that grandmother as an example, and my mother, who was just an incredible dresser. She's very statuesque and tall and Amazonian, and and so back home they had a really good life. And my grandma would fly in fabrics from Europe and have a seamstress and a tailor make them, and she always looked impeccable and well put together. And the old country where men wouldn't leave the house without their 2-3-piece suit, like sweats were not a thing back then, right? So, I grew up watching this and I loved it. But when we got here, I was 10 and we were starting from scratch, and life was very different than the glory back home. And I didn't have an opportunity to even think about it, let alone avail myself of that. But it always kind of stayed in my blood and in my DNA. And so as I started my professional journey and I was able to, everyone has a hobby and a creative outlet. Mine just naturally was fashion, right? I love to mix and match, vintage pieces, some things out of my grandma's wardrobe sometimes, and my mom's wardrobe. They're so nostalgic. And, clothes are art that you get to live your life in if you really think about it, right? Yeah. And they have the ability to make you feel a certain way. And you, depending on how you feel in that particular outfit, you put out a certain energy and other people perceive that, right? And so it can impact your performance in court, anywhere you go. It's your armor, right, at the end of the day. And so it serves a functional purpose, but also it's my artistic creative outlet.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You're on the board of the Neurosurgery and Neurosciences at UCLA.
I am a nerd. This is true.
What an accomplishment.
Thank you.
How did that come about?
I am a little bit of a neuro nerd. I really had to get into the weeds of neuroscience and learn and bring myself up to speed on the evolving medicine to be able to understand my clients' cases better and do them justice. And UCLA Department of Neurosurgery is one of the top 10 in the country. And it's run by Linda Liao, who's a dear friend of mine. She's this little 5-foot mighty woman who, is a chairman of a neurosurgery department. There's only 2 female chairs of a neurosurgery department globally. Wow. And she's, super impressive. And she's seen some of the work I've done in my field. They've helped save the lives of many of my clients and people I know, and what they're doing, the advancements that they are working on in medicine, from like vaccines and advancements in treatment of spinal cord injuries so that patients can gain mobility, and they use VR to do very kind of intricate neurosurgeries, and they help third world countries where they can kind of be on the shoulder of a physician, let's say, in India performing neurosurgery and kind of guide them. And so when I'm at these board meetings, Cullinan, I really feel like 90% of what's said goes right over my head. But, the amount of intelligence in the room is just incredible. And it's not just limited to people in the neurosciences and neurosurgery. There is a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. There's real estate tycoons that sit on that board. And so it's been a really great opportunity for me to kind of mix and mingle with people that are killing it in their own respective fields outside the realm of law and expand kind of my breadth of resources. And it's been a really amazing opportunity for me.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. You've accomplished so much. What continues to motivate you?
Thank you for saying that. First of all, you're very kind. My kids motivate me more than anything. I think my kids raising good humans, as I said before, providing opportunities for them and experiences for them that maybe I didn't have growing up.
Right.
And securing my family's future. I wish I could tell you all the motivation and drive comes from a good, healthy place. Some of it does, but some of it comes from sheer fear and just letting that fear drive me and not ever wanting to be in the position that I was in as a kid, that my parents were in when I was a kid. As first-generation immigrants, we came here with one suitcase.
Right.
And, it was like 1 foot into foreclosure every month once we were able to get our own spot. And I don't ever want to be in that position or have my kids experience that. I mean, it made me who I am today, so I'm grateful for it. But at the same time, it has, it's left a little bit of a, of a fear to not ever want to be there again.
Sure. So we know that you're an attorney, and we know that you love fashion. Is there anything else that you invest in?
I invest in myself. No, okay. Look, I invest in real estate. I'm a big believer in investing in real estate because it's secure and tried and true. And as a full-time professional, both of us were full-time professionals when we first started our marriage. It's the easiest way to make passive income that grows exponentially. I have always made it a point to live well below my means. When Armin and I moved into our first home, 20 years ago, after I settled a big case, we lived in that home for over 10 years. It was paid off, and we just, didn't see the point in taking on more debt for a primary residence. And so instead, we, were investing in real estate, picking up multi-units. And I think we got to a little over 50 units where we finally felt like, okay, now we feel comfortable splurging on our first piece of luxury real estate and that we can live in. And even then, I wanted to make sure that this was after the slump in the housing market, that we would put 50% down, which is crazy and unheard of and maybe not the best wealth building strategy, but it was my peace of mind strategy.
Sure.
And so, I've always kind of aspired to that, living below your means and investing to secure your family's future. Look, luxury goods are great. Your cars are beautiful. And I love being able to avail myself of those opportunities and those experiences. But I just want to make sure that especially young folks getting out of school today get their priorities straight with respect to, investing and securing their future and saving for a rainy day, and then, making provision to sort of give back, and then just really indulging, securely and comfortably and confidently without having to worry about, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to afford this or not? So I think real estate, I would say, is where I invest most of my money, and it's been the biggest wealth building strategy for my family.
Is there anything else that you invest in?
Yeah. So look, I'm an entrepreneur at Spirit, and I worked for someone else when I got out of law school for a year, and realized very quickly that I needed to be in business for myself. And so, over the course of the years, I've not only invested in real estate, but different business ideas that appeal to me. And the way that I decide whether or not I'm going to invest in something is whether or not I have the acumen in that particular area of what's being pitched to me, or if I've got passion for it, right?
Sure.
So I put myself through undergrad and law school doing makeup. So I've had opportunities of cosmetic lines being pitched to me. And the way that, I decide whether or not I'm going to do that is, okay, I know a thing or two about this. Can I get in there and leave it better off than I found it? Can I add value? And I love investing in entrepreneurs and different ideas. And so that's been sort of a fun cross between wealth building and also a creative outlet for me. From time to time, we'll invest things that I don't understand that great, but Armin does, like tech, in the legal space and in the dental space. And, that's been very kind of lucrative for us also. I think it's important to diversify, but, our base and our family's wealth building strategy has been centered around our professions and real estate, buying real estate. It's funny, we were at dinner with a couple maybe, I don't know, a few months ago, and we don't really talk about our investments very much because they're sort of private, and
Sure.
they're what we do for ourselves to secure our family's future. And this couple had an incredible home in the Palisades, and just lives an amazingly lavish lifestyle. And they're sort of acquaintances of ours. And we were talking to them about investing in multifamily real estate, and they shared that they had one timeshare or property in Joshua Tree, and that the guy is this really successful professional, has got like an ego, and he's really great, and he's got this great energy, and he was like, unless I can just get in there and have 200 units, I'm not interested. And I shared with him what I had, and he was stunned, and he's like, really, how's that? And I just shared with him, look, this is something that I've been investing in since 20 years ago, little by little.
Right.
The difference between a little bit and a lot is a little bit. And if you're consistently doing it as a matter of habit, then it'll grow. You don't have to
walk in and own the block.
Right.
Yes.
Right. You got to start somewhere, though. So folks that are, earning a salary, maybe fresh out of school, invest in an apartment unit, invest in a small single family residence somewhere, and then grow from there.
I like that.
Yeah.
When you're looking at different ventures to invest in, what would you say is a characteristic of an entrepreneur that you look for?
I usually will invest in the person before I invest in anything else. If I feel like the person possesses the follow through and the drive really to take this home, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be relying on them. This is a passive investment for me. I'm not going to be there doing the day in and day out. So I'm really investing in the person, whether or not they possess the star power, the acumen, the ability, the drive and desire to and whether or not, what this means to them. Do they have skin in the game? Is this their fourth idea that they've come up with? Have they, I look at their track record. Were they able to drive other ventures home? What have they done? Their education level, their skill set, their ability to problem solve and interact with others. Communication is your most important skill at the end of the day, your ability to move people, resonate with people. And so I am really, when I'm getting pitched something, I'm really evaluating and dissecting and thin slicing the person behind the idea, and, to assess whether or not I feel secure to invest in that.
What defines success to you?
Security, comfort, peace of mind, being able to spend time with your family, having the luxury of time and freedom. That's what defines success. Not a shiny thing or a pretty experience that, is going to stress you out more in the long run. I think with social media, and the focus on superficiality, it's really a danger for this generation, and something that needs to be addressed. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What does your typical day look like?
My typical day looks different from day to day, okay? So I don't have a set schedule. It just kind of depends on any given week. I can get up in the morning, have Natalie come over, we'll have an engagement like this, an interview or a quick shoot, and then straight to the office, handle business at the office. Maybe I'll have a hearing in the morning or in the afternoon, depending on whether I've got court calls in the morning or the afternoon. We'll kind of rearrange my schedule around that. Client meetings, maybe a fashion event at night during the week. That's been happening more and more. I usually decline those invitations, but I've been participating more. I'll take my kids because now they're at the age, especially my little one, he's appreciating fashion. He'll actually go with me, and I love that I can share that with them.
Right.
Then, peppered in there every day is basketball schedule, homework, tutoring, and basketball games on the weekends. So I do my very best to juggle, and I drop balls every day, and that's okay. I make provision for imperfection, and I try to be kind to myself and others, and it's been really an incredible journey. I can't complain.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, how do you balance being a professional, the kids, your husband, and everything that you do?
My husband should get a Medal of Honor because he is so supportive. It really does take a village, and that starts with a partner that's super supportive and understanding of all of your commitments and willing to kind of put up with it and support it. So last week, I realized I'd forgotten to tell him, and I said, look, I'm going with my dad to D.C. We're going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I'm so sorry. Could you handle, pickups and this and that and the other? He had to rearrange his schedule to kind of accommodate a 3-day trip that I had committed to that I had forgotten about. That just kind of came up on us last minute. So he is, you've met him, like
Armin
super
is great.
kind, super, accommodating and understanding. And so I'm very fortunate in that way. And another thing I want to address is, look, there is no balance. And if anyone tells you there is, they're lying, because there's no way, life is perfectly imperfect and things happen every day, and that's okay. You just kind of have to have the cognitive reserve and make provision for things not always going the way you need it to go. And for someone like me who's very type A, that was really difficult, and it's taken a lot of practice to be at a place where I'm at peace with, any curveballs that might happen during the course of a day, you know?
What's the best advice that you've ever received and implemented?
I've had a lot of great mentors along the way that were kind of like surrogate guardian angels in my path, because my mom worked like 90 hours a week, Cullinan, to make ends meet, and my dad wasn't around, and somehow I wound up in a really great position. And I feel like I've had great mentors and folks to kind of usher me, and that's why I love mentoring young women so much, especially in my profession, because it gives me the ability to kind of pay that forward. So I can't really pinpoint one piece of great advice I've received, although recently I had a close friend of mine come over. She's called the Ghost Host on Instagram. She does cooking shows. She's really lovely. And I was complaining to her and saying, look, she said, what's going on? I said, I feel like I'm stagnating a little bit. I don't know what the next step is creatively for me. And, there's some things I want to do in fashion that I've been kind of contemplating. And she just stopped and looked at me and said, okay, you're crazy. Because I've gone to undergrad with her husband. She's known me a long time. She goes, what is wrong with you? She goes, why can't you just be happy? Do you know that when we were in college, you would have killed to be in the position you're in today? Why can't this be it? Why can't you just be happy being here? And so that really resonated with me, right? And I think that's some great advice I've taken in. And so now I think my daily schedule has a lot more self-care worked in it. Like I go on daily hikes, I do my meditation, I do things that just ground me and put me in the moment and let me enjoy the moment, as opposed to the constant striving mode that I've been in my whole life.
Right. But it's hard. You're so accomplished, and it's just, you feel like you set goals and you feel like you can, what's next. I understand that. Yeah. What's the worst advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh. Don't let people who can't do tell you can't do, right? And so I think as a woman, when I was thinking of going to law school early on, there's some extended family members that would say, I don't know if law school's for girls. Maybe you should just do business. Don't you want to get married? Don't you want to have kids? If you go to law school, can you really have a family? Or you can be present for your kids? And that kind of limiting, stereotypical gender kind of advice that I received early on was really kind of detrimental and counterproductive. Unfortunately, I didn't follow it. But I always go out of my way to make women feel empowered, right? That they can do everything, right? That they can, I'm a big proponent of getting help and support to be able to do everything. You have one life, and you shouldn't limit yourself, and you certainly shouldn't let other people's opinions limit what you can or cannot do. And so I would say, sky's the limit, invest in yourself. There's nothing that you can't do if you really set your mind to it. And if you are willing, you make an agreement with yourself that you're going to commit to do whatever it takes to get there, right? Going back to that hard work again. So I would say, don't listen to the limiting beliefs, whether they're in your own head or externally through advice.
I love that. What, if anything, do you feel like you've had to sacrifice to get to where you are today?
My sacrifices are honestly nothing compared to my parents' sacrifices, right? They were very successful professionals back home, and my brother was 5 years old, and he was going to get drafted into the Iranian army for the Iran-Iraq war. And so they made the difficult decision to leave a life behind and come here for us to have opportunities to live the American dream. And so that was the ultimate sacrifice that they made for us. And so I'm forever indebted to them for that. And I've always tried to live my life in a way that honors the sacrifices that they've made. And so the sacrifices I've had to make, honestly, were, I moved into my aunt's basement at the age of 10 in La Cañada, California, which is a beautiful city. And I was the only brown kid in school. And, we'd have to walk, my brother and I, an hour and a half every day to school and an hour and a half back. And, 5-year-old and a 10-year-old, it was kind of a, scary times. There were no cell phones back then. And so the school found out at some point, Cullinan, and social services was at the door because we were left unsupervised. And it was just, so much. And the things that you remember, obviously, are the things that have impacted you. But they're also things that have molded your trajectory and made me who I am today, right? But there's been plenty of sacrifices. And then there's just kind of the decision to advance my education. I worked my whole life since I was 16 years old. After my mom's flower shop, I did makeup. I put myself through school and law school doing makeup professionally. And so I did whatever it took, but I never really got to, I had to make choices, right, to help provide for my family. And so there was no partying at 16. I had to grow up really quickly to kind of help my mom out because she was a single mom taking care of us both in a foreign country. And then obviously the decision to go study at the library until 2, 3 in the morning instead of going out and hanging out and doing fun stuff. And so, I don't regret any of that because honestly, I've had a really blessed life. And if anything, it's a true example of living the American dream. And this really is the land of opportunity. And I'm so fortunate. But at the same time, when you ask, what I've sacrificed, those are the things that come to mind. But first and foremost, I think of my parents and what it must have been like to leave all of that behind and come here to make sure that your kids are secure and safe.
Tina, exactly what you're sharing with us right now is the exact reason I started this podcast. On a daily basis, I am inspired by clients like you. We look at social media and we see things, right? And a lot of people don't understand what it takes to get to where you are today. And it's so important for me to show my son people's stories like yourself of what it really takes, because people don't understand and they want that instant gratification like we were talking about. So I just thank you for being open and sharing and inspiring, because there's a lot of people that they don't know how to start or where to start, or maybe because they come from a certain background, they don't think that they could get to where you are today. So I just have to mention that and just thank you for that.
I appreciate the opportunity, honestly. Thank you so much. And, if I can help anyone, if I can help inspire or uplift anyone to feel like where they start out doesn't in any way limit where they can go, then I feel like I've done my job for the day. So thank you for giving me that platform and that opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Who would you say keeps you grounded?
I think, my kids, my clients, their stories, their humbling stories. I mean, they're real heroes. Talk about having your life turned upside down and still finding the wherewithal to get up in the morning, to get that get up and go. Like, I don't get to complain, And so I think they really keep me grounded. And then, challenges with aging parents. It's really hard to watch my mom go from being the primary breadwinner and the caregiver to now being a patient and a stroke survivor. And so I think those types of things really put things in perspective and keep me grounded and remind me of what's important. It's not reacting to something maybe unpleasant that happened in my day, or like a mean girl moment that I might have encountered or whatever. Like, all of those things are so insignificant as compared to real issues.
Right. Right. Real life events. I agree. Right. If you could be remembered for anything, what would you want it to be?
I would want to be remembered for helping people and dedicating my career to really helping people, whether it's my clients, whether it's, through mentorship, through organizations that I belong to, through nonprofits, or even just through Instagram, like if I can answer someone's DM or uplift them or give them the kind of courage they need, or pay their bar, their bar dues, their bar registration dues to take the exam, or whatever it is for really helping people and paying it forward, because I had a lot of amazing people in my path. I'm a believer. I pray every day, and God has really blessed me.
Right.
And so I want to be that person that pays it forward, and I want to leave that legacy behind.
You're a beautiful soul.
Thank
and I think anyone that crosses your path feels blessed to know you.
You're
And
very sweet.
you inspire me, and you inspire everyone that, I'm sure gets to watch this. So I just want to thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I love you. Thank you for having
And
me.
I can't
It's
wait
been a
to
privilege.
come to your closet.
Yes, anytime. Open invitation.
Yes.